Choose her or me. Those 4 words cut through the air in the dining room like a sharp knife, leaving a silence so heavy it seemed to suck all the oxygen from the room. My daughter-in-law Jennifer stood arms crossed over her chest, her face flushed with an anger she no longer tried to hide. Her eyes were fixed on my son Michael, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone since he was 7 after my husband Robert died in that terrible accident on the interstate. Here we were on Thanksgiving, the table I'd spent 2 days preparing laden. With food no one was eating anymore, and my daughter-in-law was demanding my son make a choice no human being should have to make. Choose between his mother and his wife. As if love were a zero-sum game. As if there was room for only one of us in his life. Michael was pale, his eyes darting from me to Jennifer and back again, his hands shaking on the table. My grandchildren, Emma and Lucas, sat wide-eyed. Emma at 8, old enough to understand something terrible was happening. Lucas, just 5, starting to cry softly without knowing exactly why. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump out of my chair and shake Jennifer by the shoulders, ask her, how dare she do this? How dare she destroy a family on a day that should be about gratitude and unity? But my voice was stuck in my throat, my body frozen in the chair, and all I could do was look at my son and silently pray that he would do the right thing. The clock on the wall marked each passing second with a ticking that echoed like war drums. Jennifer was waiting, her foot tapping the floor impatiently, her lips pressed into a thin line. I was waiting, my broken heart shattering a little more with each second of silence. And then Michael opened his mouth, and the word that came out changed absolutely everything. Not just that dinner, not just that day, but the entire course of our lives, revealing truths I never imagined, leading to discoveries that left me speechless, and culminating in a turn of events I could never have predicted in 1,000 years. If you're listening to this story right now, you probably know that families are much more complex than those perfect images we see in holiday ads right here on this channel. This is a space where real stories like mine are shared without filters, without judgment, with all the raw truth that real life offers. These stories will make you laugh, cry, reflect deeply on your own family relationships, and perhaps even help you see situations in your own life from a new perspective. Each story here is a window into the genuine human experience, with all the mistakes, all the pain, but also with all the possibility of starting over and overcoming. Subscribe to the channel and come be part of this community where we understand that life is not perfect, where we support each other through the storms, and where every story matters because each of us matters. You are not alone in your struggles. And together we discover that there is always a path to dignity and better days. Now, let me take you from the beginning, from when I thought I had the perfect family to the moment I discovered truths that changed everything forever. My name is Margaret, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 62 years old and have lived my entire life in Portland, Oregon, in a small house I bought with my husband Robert when we were just married over 40 years ago. It was a modest home in a quiet neighborhood with a front yard where I planted roses every summer and a porch where Robert and I used to sit on summer evenings sipping lemonade and planning our future. We had simple but beautiful dreams we wanted. To raise our son in a home full of love, travel when we retired, grow old together, surrounded by grandchildren. Life had other plans. Robert died when he was only 35, leaving me a widow at 30 with a 7-year-old son to raise alone. The accident was brief, they say. He didn't suffer, but for Michael and me, the grief lasted for years. Nights of tears, bills piling up, a small boy asking when Daddy was coming home. For the first few months, I could barely function. There were days when I didn't want to get out of bed. Days when looking at Michael was painful because he had the same brown eyes as his father, the same crooked smile. But I didn't have the luxury of falling apart completely. I had a son who depended on me, so I picked myself up, wiped away the tears, and did what needed to be done. I got a job at a local bookstore called Pages and Dreams, starting as a saleswoman and eventually, after years of hard work, becoming manager. It didn't pay much, so I took a second job cleaning offices 3 nights a week. I slept little, I was constantly tired, but Michael was fed, clothed, and had everything he needed for school. More than that, I made sure he knew he was loved, that he wasn't alone in this world even without his father. We read together every night before bed. I went to all his baseball games, even when I was exhausted. I helped with his homework at the kitchen table while I cooked dinner. They were difficult years, years where every penny counted, where vacations meant camping in the backyard because we couldn't afford a hotel, where Christmas presents were few but chosen with love. Michael grew up to be an exceptional young man. He was intelligent, diligent in his studies, and respectful. When it came time for college, he received a few scholarships, but not enough to cover everything. I had some money saved, saving penny by penny for years, but it wasn't enough. So I took a third weekend job working at a coffee shop. I spent 4 years working these 3 jobs to ensure Michael could graduate without the student debt that would haunt him for decades. He graduated with honors in software engineering, landed a great job at a growing tech company in Portland, and I could finally breathe. Finally, the sacrifices had paid off. Finally, my son was settled, secure, and happy. I quit my side jobs and went back to working solely at the bookstore, which I loved. I finally had time for myself, to tend my garden, to read the books I'd always wanted to, but never had the time for. I was 58 when life finally seemed to be settling down, when I could finally rest a little. And then Michael met Jennifer, and everything changed again. He was 28, having worked at the company for 3 years, when he came home one October day with that sparkle in his eyes that I recognized immediately. It was the same sparkle I'd seen on Robert's face when we met, that mix of excitement and nervousness that only new love brings. He told me about Jennifer over dinner, how incredible she was, funny, beautiful, smart. He worked in the marketing department at the same company, was 25, and had just moved to Portland from Seattle. He talked about her for hours, every detail, how she laughed, what she liked to eat, her favorite movies. I was happy for him. After a few failed relationships that left him hurt and discouraged, seeing my son so in love was gratifying. A few weeks later, Michael called me to say he wanted me to meet Jennifer. We arranged a dinner at my house for the following Saturday. I spent the entire week preparing, cleaning the house until it gleamed, planning the perfect menu. I decided on roast potatoes and carrots, Michael's favorite dish since childhood, along with a fresh salad and homemade apple pie for dessert. I bought fresh flowers for the table, used my mother's linen tablecloth, and set out beautiful candles. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted Jennifer to feel welcome. I wanted to start what I hoped would be a long and positive relationship on the right foot. When the doorbell rang that Saturday at 6 o'clock, my heart was pounding. I opened the door, and there she was, even more beautiful than in the photos Michael had shown me. Jennifer had long, shiny blonde hair, crystal blue eyes, flawless skin, and a dazzling smile. She was impeccably dressed in black dress pants, a white silk blouse, and understated high heels, holding a beautiful bouquet of pink tulips. "Hello, you must be Maggie," she said in a sweet, warm voice, pulling me into a hug before I could even respond. "I'm so excited to finally meet you. Michael talks about you all the time." I was enchanted. She seemed genuine, warm, exactly the kind of person I'd hoped for my son. During dinner, Jennifer was friendly and engaging. She asked questions about my life, about raising Michael alone, about the bookstore, about my hobbies. She seemed genuinely interested in the answers, asking follow-up questions, sharing her own stories. She told me about growing up in Seattle, about losing her father at 16 to cancer, about how her mother struggled financially afterward. I felt an immediate connection, thinking she understood what it was like to go through hardship, what it was like to lose someone important. She raved about the food, saying the roast was better than any restaurant, that the apple pie was the best she'd ever tasted. I asked her for the recipe, carefully writing it on a card she kept in her purse, telling her it was a treasure. When they left that night, Michael kissed me on the cheek and whispered that he was glad we'd gotten along. Jennifer hugged me again, thanked me for the wonderful dinner, and said she couldn't wait to see me again. I closed the door and smiled, my heart warming, thinking that maybe my son had finally found the right person, that maybe I would finally have The extended family, I'd always dreamed of that. Maybe there would be grandchildren in my not-a-distant future. Oh, how wrong I was. How that warm first impression was just Jennifer's mask hiding who she really was underneath. The first few months were wonderful. So wonderful that when I think about them now, I wonder if it was all planned from the start. Jennifer started coming to visit me alone without Michael stopping by the bookstore at lunchtime to chat, sometimes bringing sandwiches for us to eat together. She called me at least 3 or 4 times a week with long conversations about everything and nothing, from recipe advice to work rants. I felt important in her life. I felt like I was building the kind of relationship with my daughter-in-law that some of my friends envied, as many complained about distant or confrontational daughters-in-law. Jennifer included me in everything, inviting me to go shopping with her, to coffee, to see movies. We made plans for the four of us, me, Jennifer, Michael, and sometimes a friend or girlfriend. I was meeting dinners at restaurants, trips to the movies, Sunday walks in the park. It was in February, 4 months after meeting Jennifer, that Michael told me he was going to propose. We were alone in my house. He'd come to help me fix a leaky faucet, and when we finished, we sat in the kitchen drinking tea. He was nervous, fidgeting with his hands, and when he finally spoke, the words came out in a rush. "Mom, I love Jennifer. I want to spend the rest of my life with her. I want to have children with her. I want to grow old with her. I'm going to propose next month on our 1-year anniversary." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a beautiful ring, a solitaire diamond in white gold that sparkled in the kitchen light. "Mom, do you think she'll say yes? Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" I held his hands, looked into my son's brown eyes, so similar to his father's, and told him with all sincerity that if Jennifer loved him as much as he loved her, she would definitely say yes. I gave my blessing, hugged my son, and cried tears of joy, thinking he had found his person. The proposal took place in March at an upscale restaurant in downtown Portland, overlooking the Willamette River. Michael planned everything perfectly. A romantic dinner, a violinist playing their favorite song, and then at dessert, he got down on one knee and popped the question. Jennifer cried, said yes, and the entire restaurant applauded. Michael showed me the video a friend had filmed, and it truly was beautiful, cinematic, the kind of moment people dream of. Jennifer called me the next morning, still ecstatic, wanting to show me the ring in person, wanting to start planning the wedding immediately. She came over that afternoon, and we spent hours looking through bridal magazines, making lists, dreaming of the perfect day. That's when things started to change so subtly that it took me months to truly notice the pattern. Jennifer started calling me every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, always about the wedding. At first, I thought it was sweet that she wanted my opinion so much that she included me in every decision. But slowly I realized it wasn't really about my opinion. It was more about validating choices she'd already made. She'd call me and say things like, "I found the perfect venue for the reception. It's a beautiful historic mansion. It seats 200 people. It has incredible gardens. Don't you think it would be perfect?" And I'd agree because it sounded beautiful. Or she'd say, "I found the dress of my dreams. It's by a famous designer. It has imported gemstones. It makes me look like a princess. Don't you think every bride deserves to feel that way?" And again, I'd agree because every bride should feel special on her wedding day. The trouble started when cost crept into conversations. It happened gradually, starting with casual comments. Jennifer mentioned in passing that the venue she loved cost $8,000 just to rent for a day. The dress she fell in love with was $3,200. The photographer she wanted, who had won awards and photographed celebrity weddings, was $5,000. Each conversation revealed yet another big-ticket item she had set her heart on. As I started doing the math in my head, I realized that the wedding she was planning would easily cost $40,000 or $50,000. I mentioned this to her in one of our conversations, saying that maybe we should consider more economical options, that beautiful weddings didn't have to cost a fortune. Jennifer was quiet for a moment, and then her voice changed, became lower, more vulnerable. "Maggie, I know it's a lot of money. I know it's excessive," she said. "But you have to understand, when my father died, my mother could barely make ends meet. We didn't have a proper Christmas for years. No graduation party, nothing special. This wedding is the only chance I'll have to have something beautiful, something memorable. And Michael is paying what he can, but with his salary just covering the apartment and basic expenses, there's not much left. She wasn't asking for money directly, but the implication was clear. And I wanted my son and future daughter-in-law to have a beautiful day wanting to start. This new phase, on a positive note, offered to help. I said I had some savings, not much, but that I would be happy to contribute whatever I could. Jennifer's face lit up instantly. "Oh, Maggie, would you do that? Would you really help?" "I don't know what to say. You're amazing. You're the best mother-in-law anyone could ask for." She hugged me tightly, and in that moment I felt good about the decision. I felt I was doing something beautiful, something my husband, Robert, would have approved of, helping our son through one of the most important moments of his life. What started as an offer to help with some expenses quickly turned into me paying for almost everything. Jennifer came to me with every new expense, every new item she absolutely had to have. The venue for $8,000. The dress for $3,200. The photographer for $5,000. The caterer for $12,000 for 200 people. The flowers for $4,000 because she wanted peonies imported out of season. The cake for $1,500, 5 tiers covered in fondant and handmade sugar flowers. The live band for $3,500. The custom invitations with letterpress and gold borders for $800. The venue decor with hanging lights, floral curtains, and rented furniture for $6,000. The list went on and on. Every time I thought we were done, Jennifer would come up with some other essentials she couldn't live without. I tried to set boundaries a few times, saying we needed to cut costs somewhere, but Jennifer had a way of making me seem petty or insensitive. She'd say things like, "I thought you wanted Michael's wedding to be special," or "I would never ask if it wasn't really important," or "Okay, I understand I didn't have a father to pay for my wedding, so I should expect less." Sentence was like a stab of guilt, making me feel terrible for even questioning it. And Michael, when I tried to talk to him about the rising costs, would just sigh and say he wanted Jennifer to be happy, that she deserved a beautiful day after everything she'd been through. Ultimately, I spent $22,400 on their wedding. $22,400 that represented years of careful savings money I'd saved, thinking it would be for my retirement for emergencies, to finally take that trip to Europe Robert and I had always dreamed of but never managed to take. I gave it all up, emptied my savings account, and used everything I had because I believed I was investing in my family's happiness. That was starting this new phase the right way. The wedding itself was beautiful. I can't deny it. It was in June, a perfect sunny day in the garden of the historic mansion Jennifer had chosen. The venue was transformed into a fairy tale with all the flowers, lights strung from the trees, white chairs decorated with satin ribbons. Jennifer looked stunning in her expensive gown, walking down the aisle to the sound of a string quartet. Michael stood beside the altar, tears in his eyes, clearly moved to see his bride. The ceremony was beautiful, the vows were touching, and when they kissed as husband and wife, everyone applauded and some cried. The reception was elaborate, with a 3-course dinner served at the table, multiple cocktail bars, and that impressive 5-tiered cake. Jennifer had hired a choreographer to teach them an elaborate first dance, and when they did it, truly looked like something out of a movie. During the reception, Jennifer gave an emotional speech. She thanked everyone for coming, thanked Michael for being the man of her dreams, and then turned to me. She said, tears streaming down her perfectly mad-up face, "I want to especially thank Maggie, my mother-in-law, my second mother. Without her, this day would not have been possible. She gave me not only financial support, but also emotional support, advice, and unconditional love. Maggie, I promise I will take care of your son. I will love him as you love him, and I will make you proud of me." Everyone applauded. Many people were crying, and I was crying too, feeling that every penny had been worth it, that this was confirmation that I had done the right thing. Their honeymoon was in Italy, 2 weeks visiting Rome, Florence, Venice, and the Amalfi Coast. Jennifer came to visit me 3 weeks before the trip, sitting in my living room with that look I was beginning to recognize the look that meant she was going to ask something. Maggie, I know you've done so much for us, so much, and I feel terrible even asking. But she paused, biting her lip. Michael and I were talking about the honeymoon, and the flights and hotels we could find within our budget are so basic, so bland. This is our only honeymoon. You know, it's the only time we'll have this experience. I've always dreamed of staying in beautiful hotels in Italy, of having this magical experience. And I thought, maybe if it's not too much to ask, could you consider this your wedding gift to us? Help make our honeymoon special. She showed me the itinerary she had planned. 5-star hotels in each city, Michelin-starred restaurants, private tours, all top-notch. The total cost was $5,700 on top of what they had already booked. I had barely recovered financially from the wedding, but looking at Jennifer's hopeful face, her pleading eyes, I gave in again. I said yes, that it would be my wedding gift to them, that I wanted them to have an unforgettable honeymoon. Jennifer jumped off the couch and hugged me so tightly she could barely breathe, telling me over and over that I was the best mother-in-law in the world, that she was so lucky that she would bring me beautiful gifts from Italy. They spent 2 weeks in Europe while I worked overtime at the bookstore trying to rebuild my finances. When they returned, tanned and radiant, they visited me laden with photos and stories. Jennifer brought me an Italian leather bag that must have cost at least $500, and though I thanked her, I couldn't help but think, I'd rather have the $500 back than the bag. But I smiled, thanked her, and put the bag away in the closet, where it would remain virtually untouched for the next few years, too sophisticated for my simple life as a bookstore manager. They moved into a rented apartment about 20 minutes from my house, a small but cozy 1-bedroom apartment with a living room and a kitchenette. I started visiting regularly, usually once or twice a week, bringing home cooked meals and helping with chores. I noticed Jennifer wasn't very good at keeping the house clean. There were always dishes in the sink, clothes strewn about, and dusty surfaces. When I gently mentioned this, she'd say she was exhausted from work. That marketing was too stressful, that she barely had the energy to cook dinner, let alone clean the entire house. So I helped out, washing dishes, folding clothes, vacuuming, telling myself it was only temporary, that it was normal to help out in the first few months of marriage as they were adjusting. It was in November, 5 months after the wedding, that Jennifer broke the news to me. All right. She and Michael came over for dinner, and during dessert, all right, Jennifer held my hand and said, her eyes shining with excitement, Maggie, we have news. I'm pregnant. We're having a baby. You're going to be a grandmother. The world stopped for a second. I was going to be a grandmother. After all these years, after raising Michael alone, after dreaming of this moment, it was finally here. I cried with pure happiness, hugged them both at the same time, and told them how excited I was, how I would be the best grandmother in the world, how much that baby would be loved. Michael was radiant, clearly happy and excited. Jennifer was crying too, saying she wanted me to be very present in the baby's life, that I would be essential, that the baby would be lucky to have a grandmother like me. The first few months of Jennifer's pregnancy were difficult, or so she said. She complained constantly of nausea, fatigue, and aches. 2 weeks after announcing the pregnancy, she called me to say she decided to quit her job. Maggie, I just can't do it anymore, she said, her voice tearful. The nausea is horrible. I'm vomiting multiple times a day. I can't even look at the computer screen without feeling nauseous. And the stress isn't good for the baby. My doctor said I need to slow down, put the baby's health first. I asked if she'd talk to Michael about this, since they'd have to live on one salary. She said yes, that Michael was worried, but understood that the baby's health was more important than money. Jennifer's decision to quit her job completely changed their financial dynamic. Michael was earning a decent salary, around $70,000 a year, but in the Portland area, that wasn't as far as it seemed, especially with rent, car insurance, and now all the extra pregnancy expenses that her health insurance didn't fully cover. Jennifer started coming over to my house almost every day. At first, I thought it was because she wanted company, because being home alone all day was boring. But it quickly became clear that each visit came with requests with needs, with expenses that somehow always fell on my lap. She needed maternity clothes, but not just any maternity clothes. They had to be from specific brands because the cheap ones were uncomfortable and made her feel ugly. $500 worth of clothes she would wear for a maximum of 6 months. She wanted prenatal yoga at a specific boutique studio all her friends frequented, not those free classes in the community. $200 a month for the fancy studio. Her doctor had recommended special prenatal vitamins that her insurance didn't cover. $60 a month. She wanted a maternity photo shoot with a professional photographer to capture her beautiful belly. $800. The list went on, and each time Jennifer presented these requests as necessities, as things any expectant mother should have, as investments in the baby and her health. I paid. I always paid. Because it was my grandson growing inside her, because Michael was stressed about finances and I wanted to help, because Jennifer had a way of making it seem like if I really cared, if I were truly a good mother-in-law and future grandmother, I would find a way to help. My bank account was constantly being drained, but I told myself it was temporary, that it was only until the baby was born that things would normalize afterward. Emma was born on a June afternoon, almost exactly a year after Michael and Jennifer's wedding. She was a perfect little girl, 7 pounds and 3 ounces, with blonde hair like her mother, huge blue eyes, and chubby cheeks that begged to be kissed. I was in the waiting room throughout the labor, nervous and anxious, and when Michael came out and took me to meet my granddaughter, it was one of the most emotional moments of my life. I held that tiny baby in my arms and felt my heart burst with love. I promised right then and there that I would do everything I could for that child, that I would be the best grandmother. She could have that. She would always know she was loved unconditionally. Jennifer stayed in the hospital for 2 days, and then they brought Emma home. I was there every day helping with everything. I quickly learned that Jennifer didn't have much patience for the difficulties of newborn motherhood. When Emma cried in the middle of the night, Jennifer complained that she was exhausted, that she couldn't function without sleep, so Michael was the one who got up most of the time. During the day when Michael was working, I was the one there. Jennifer would call me crying, saying she didn't know what to do, that Emma wouldn't stop crying, that she was overwhelmed. I went over, calmed the baby, changed diapers, gave bottles, and let Jennifer rest. It was 2 weeks after Emma was born that Jennifer made me a proposal. "Maggie, I don't know what I'm going to do when my maternity leave ends," she said as I rocked Emma to sleep. "I can't go back to work, not yet, maybe never. I want to stay home with my daughter. I want to be present for every moment, every milestone. But we also can't afford a nanny, at least not a good one. Good nannies cost $1,000 or $1,200 a month, and we simply don't have that." She paused, looking at me with those big blue eyes. "You could help, not with money this time, but with time. Could you watch Emma during the day? I know you work, but maybe you could adjust your schedule. Emma loves you so much already, and I trust you more than I would any stranger." It was obvious manipulation, but it was effective. How could I say no to spending time with my granddaughter? How could I let a stranger care for her when I could do it myself? I talked to my boss at the bookstore and managed to switch to part-time, working only mornings 3 days a week, losing half my salary. I started caring for Emma Monday through Friday from 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening. And I didn't charge anything, not a cent, even though I knew professional nannies easily charged $1,200 or more for this kind of extensive care. My days started early. Was at their house at 8 o'clock sharp every day. I usually found the house in chaos, Jennifer still in bed or in the shower, Emma needing to be changed and fed. I took charge, tending to the baby, cleaning the kitchen, organizing the living room. Jennifer would eventually show up, grab her yoga bag or her car keys, say she was going to a class or to meet friends, thank me quickly, and leave. I was alone with Emma all day, changing endless diapers, preparing bottles, rocking her when she was fussy, playing with her when she was awake, and happy, singing lullabies, reading children's books to her even. She didn't understand yet. They were long and tiring days, especially at my age, but they were also rewarding. Emma was a happy baby most of the time, and watching her grow, learn new things, smile when she saw me, that made it all worth it. But beyond time, I also ended up spending a lot of money on Emma. Jennifer had strong opinions about everything the baby needed, and, of course, only the best brands would do. The crib had to be a specific, expensive brand, $1,200. The stroller had to be a highly rated luxury model, $900. The car seat had to be the safest available, $400. Clothes had to be organic, cotton toys had to be educational and made of wood, not cheap plastic. Diapers had to be a specific premium brand. Every item was an expense, and somehow I always ended up paying. Jennifer would say things like, I would buy all this if we could, but with Michael being the sole provider, everything is so tight. Maybe you could help us just this once, and this once became every time. In the first year of Emma's life, I later calculated that I spent about $14,000 on baby equipment, clothes, diapers, food, and 1,000 other little things. $14,000 on top of the 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week I spent caring for her for free. My retirement, already indefinitely postponed, was becoming an increasingly distant dream. But when I held Emma when she learned something new, and I was there too, witness it when she saw me and her little face lit up with a smile, I thought that maybe it was worth it. That maybe these were the sacrifices grandparents make. Emma was almost a year old when Jennifer and Michael came to visit with a proposal that would change everything again. We sat in my living room, them next to each other on the couch, me in the chair opposite. Michael looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his hands, but Jennifer was excited. "Maggie," she began, "we found the perfect house. Our dream house. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a huge backyard, perfect for Emma to grow and play in, and it's in a great neighborhood with great schools. It's everything we've ever wanted." She showed me pictures on her phone, and it truly was a beautiful house, a charming craftsman style with a covered porch and a well-kept garden. "The problem," she continued, "is the down payment. We need $40,000 for the down payment, and we don't have it. We tried to get a loan, but our credit isn't perfect after all the debt from the wedding, and the interest would be absurd." Michael looked at me with pleading eyes. "Mom, I know it's a lot to ask. I know you've already done so much, but we wouldn't have asked if it wasn't important. Emma needs a yard, she needs space, and this apartment is getting too small. If you could help us just this once, we promise we'll pay you back as soon as possible." $40,000. I didn't have $40,000. I'd saved a little since the wedding, working whatever hours I could, cutting costs where I could, but I didn't have that amount. Jennifer saw the hesitation on my face and quickly added, "We've thought about it. You could take out a loan using your home as collateral. Home equity interest rates are low, and you could pay it back comfortably over the years. We'd sign a document acknowledging that it's a loan from you, not a gift. And we'd pay it back with interest as soon as our situation improves. It's an investment in the family, Maggie. An investment in Emma's future." All the alarm bells were ringing in my head. This was madness. Putting my home at risk. The home Robert and I bought together so many years ago. The home where I raised Michael, my security, everything on the line for a home that wasn't even mine. But I looked at my son, saw the hope in his face, saw Emma in Jennifer's arms, my granddaughter whom I loved more than anything, and the voices of reason were silenced by guilt and love. I went to the bank the following week, lied about the reason for the loan because I knew the manager would try to dissuade me, and walked out with a check for $40,000 and a second mortgage that would increase my monthly payments significantly for the next 15 years. The house closed in August, just after Emma's first birthday. It was a truly beautiful house, I'll admit. It had original hardwood floors, fireplaces in 2 rooms, a bright if outdated kitchen, and that large backyard with mature trees and even a small swing set already installed. I helped with the move hiring and paying for the movers, because of course Jennifer said they couldn't afford to hire professionals and that I couldn't take a day off from work. As soon as they moved in, Jennifer immediately started making lists of things the house needed. The bedrooms needed painting $1,500 to hire professional painters. The living room needed new furniture because the old ones didn't fit the new space. It's $4,000 worth of sofas, armchairs, and coffee tables. Emma's bedroom needed to be transformed into an Instagram-worthy princess bedroom, $3,000 worth of themed furniture, expensive wallpaper, and decorations. Every project was essential, every expense was non-negotiable, and somehow I always ended up contributing financially. In the first month after moving, I spent $7,400 on painting, furniture, and decorating. My bank account was virtually empty. I was drawing from my monthly bookstore salary to pay my own bills, but I couldn't say no when. Jennifer showed me inspirational photos and told me how Emma deserved to grow up in a beautiful, welcoming home. Michael seemed oblivious to much of what was going on, working long hours to cover the new, larger mortgage and all the other expenses. When I tried to engage him in conversation about finances, he seemed evasive, changing the subject and claiming everything was under control when it clearly wasn't. It was when Emma was 18 months old that Jennifer became pregnant again. This time there was no special announcement dinner. She simply called me one day and said I'm pregnant again. It wasn't planned, but we're excited. Emma's going to have a little brother or sister. My heart sank, then soared hazily. Another grandchild to love was wonderful, but it also meant more expenses. More needs, more demands on my already stretched time and money. Lucas was born on a cold February morning 3 weeks early. He was a healthy baby, 6 pounds and 9 ounces, with Michael's dark hair and the same brown eyes. Emma, now 2, was confused about the new baby, sometimes curious, sometimes clearly resentful of the attention he received. My caregiving workload instantly doubled. Now I was caring for a newborn who needed constant attention and a 2-year-old who was going through the terrible twos phase. My days were exhaustingly long, starting at 7:30 when I arrived and often not ending until 7 at night when Jennifer or Michael finally got home. What bothered me most was that Jennifer was home all day, yet somehow I was still doing all the childcare work. When I arrived in the morning, the house was often in chaos. Emma was already awake, still in her pajamas, usually watching cartoons on TV, sometimes with her diaper. Clearly in need of a change for hours. Lucas was in his crib, crying, also needing to be changed and fed. Jennifer was almost always still asleep or getting ready, leaving the room around 10 or 11 in the morning, dressed to go to the gym or meet friends, barely glancing at the kids before leaving. She would return in the late afternoon, pick up Lucas, take pictures for Instagram, caption about how being a mother was the most rewarding job, and then hand the baby back to me, saying she needed to start dinner, though she rarely actually cooked, and Michael usually picked something up on the way home. I was caring for both children 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, unpaid, while working part-time at the bookstore, in the mornings when I could, and still contributing financially to virtually everything the children needed. Lucas needed all the same expensive equipment that Emma needed. Jennifer insisted that we couldn't reuse much of Emma's things because they were worn out or unsuitable for a boy. A new crib because Emma's had some marks, $800. A new stroller because the other one had worn wheels, $900. A new car seat because safety technologies had advanced, $400. New clothes, new toys, new everything. In the first 6 months of Lucas's life, I spent another $9,000. My health began to deteriorate. I was 60 at the time, no longer young, and the physical and emotional stress of caring for 2 small children every day was taking its toll. I developed high blood pressure and had to start taking medication. I was constantly tired with back and knee pain from constantly lifting and bending down to pick up the children. I was having trouble sleeping, waking up in the middle of the night, worrying about money, about whether I would be able to make the mortgage payments, about whether I would have anything left for my retirement, which was becoming increasingly an impossible fantasy. I tried to talk to Michael about reducing my caregiving hours. Perhaps he and Jennifer could arrange for one of them to work from home a day or 2 a week, or perhaps they could hire help for at least 2 days. Michael became defensive, saying they couldn't afford a babysitter, that Jennifer was doing the best she could. and that he couldn't work from home because his job didn't allow it. When I tried to suggest that perhaps Jennifer could return to work at least part-time now that the children were a little older, he became visibly uncomfortable, changed the subject, and said it was their decision how they arranged their lives and that he appreciated everything I did. Talking to Jennifer was impossible. Every time I even hinted that I needed more help or that I was overwhelmed, she would get offended, saying that if I didn't want to care for my grandchildren anymore, just say so that she would find another way that she didn't want to force me into anything. It was classic manipulation, making me seem ungrateful for the opportunity to spend time with my grandchildren, completely ignoring the fact that I was working full-time for free and still financing everything. Things continued in this pattern for the next few years. Emma grew into a smart, sweet child and started preschool. Lucas began talking, walked, and developed a cheerful and affectionate personality. I was there for every milestone, every first word, every first step, because I was the one who spent nearly every waking hour with them. I was the one who taught Emma her letters and numbers, who comforted her when she fell and hurt herself, who prepared healthy meals, who read stories at nap time. I was the one doing the mothering while Jennifer was at the gym, out to lunch with friends, posting perfectly curated Instagram photos of the fabulous lifestyle I was funding. Michael was becoming more distant, more stressed, more exhausted. The few times we managed to talk alone, he admitted he was worried about money, that he didn't know where all the money was going, that the bills were becoming impossible to pay. I knew exactly where the money was going. It was going to the designer clothes Jennifer constantly bought, the monthly beauty treatments, the expensive dinners at restaurants she insisted they had to have to keep the spark in their marriage, the weekend getaways she organized without consulting the budget. But I didn't say any of this to Michael. I didn't want to be the meddling mother-in-law. I didn't want to create more problems in his already strained marriage. It was when Emma was 5 and Lucas was 3 that Jennifer decided she needed to completely remodel the kitchen. The kitchen was functioning perfectly well, a little outdated aesthetically, but completely functional. Jennifer didn't mind. She showed me inspirational photos on Pinterest, sleek white kitchens with marble countertops, stainless steel appliances, and custom cabinets. She said cooking in that ugly, outdated kitchen was destroying her motivation to prepare healthy meals for her family, even though she rarely cooked anyway. She got 3 quotes from contractors, all between $28,000 and $32,000. She and Michael didn't have anywhere near that, obviously. So Jennifer came to me. This time I seriously hesitated. I said I really didn't have that kind of money, that I was struggling with my own bills, that the mortgage was suffocating me financially. Jennifer became visibly irritated, for the first time openly showing her displeasure with me. Maggie, after everything we've done for you, after letting you spend so much time with our children, after being so patient with your controlling nature, this is how you repay us. She was stunned. My controlling nature, I, the one who was essentially working for free as a nanny and funding their extravagant lifestyle. Michael was present and tried to intervene, saying maybe they should wait for the renovation, but Jennifer wouldn't listen. She said if they couldn't do it now, they never would. That Emma was growing up and deserved to make family memories in a beautiful kitchen. The guilt was overwhelming. I went back to the bank, explained I needed more money, and increased the home equity loan again. I left with $30,000, which went directly into Jennifer and Michael's account. The renovation took 3 months, during which the kitchen was unusable. Not only did I continue to babysit the kids during this chaos, but I also ended up buying many of their meals because they had nowhere to cook. Another $2,300 in takeout and restaurant dinners. The renovated kitchen is beautiful, I must admit. White and bright with all the modern amenities. Jennifer posted hundreds of photos of herself, tagging designers and brands, receiving gushing comments from followers. She never mentioned in the posts who actually paid for the kitchen. She never mentioned her mother-in-law, who was sacrificing her own financial security to make that kitchen a reality. It was during the kitchen renovation that I started having heart problems. Chest pains that scared me, palpitations, shortness of breath. I went to the doctor, who ran a battery of tests and told me I was at high risk for serious heart problems if I didn't drastically reduce my stress levels. He prescribed medication and told me quite seriously that I needed to slow down, that I was slowly killing myself with worry and overwork. I tried to talk to Michael and Jennifer, explaining the doctor's warning and suggesting that we might need to rearrange the childcare arrangements, at least temporarily. Jennifer reacted as if I'd suggested abandoning the children on the street. She said the children loved me, that I was essential to their lives, that the stability of having their grandmother care for them was crucial to their emotional development. She said that if I stopped caring for them, Emma would be devastated, that Lucas would cry for me every day. How could I argue with that? How could I risk emotionally hurting the children I loved more than anything? So I continued taking my heart and blood pressure medication, praying my body would hold out just a little longer, just until the children were older. The following years blurred into an exhausting cycle. I continued caring for Emma and Lucas 5 days a week, continued financing endless expenses, continued watching my relationship with Michael deteriorate as he worked constantly and barely had energy for anything else when he got home. Conversations between us became superficial, functional. How are the kids? Fine. How's work? Exhausting. How are you, Mom? Fine. Polite lies hiding the reality that we were all sinking, just at different rates. Jennifer, on the other hand, seemed to be thriving. She had become a minor Instagram influencer with a few thousand followers who admired her seemingly perfect suburban mom lifestyle. She posted photos of her perfectly dressed children, her beautiful house, and the gourmet dinners she supposedly prepared, but which were often bought or prepared by me. She posted about self-care and finding balance, about the importance of making time for yourself, about living your best life. It was all a facade, a carefully constructed lie where she was the hero and I was, at best, an unreliable extra, at worst, an obstacle she tolerated. The first major explicit conflict occurred on Emma's 5th birthday. I had offered to throw a party at my house, something simple and sweet with school friends. A homemade cake and decorations based on Emma's then-loved unicorn theme. I spent days preparing, baking the unicorn-shaped cake, making handmade decorations, and creating fun activities for the kids. Jennifer, Michael, and the kids arrived, as did 6 of Emma's school friends. The party was going well. The kids were laughing and playing until Jennifer started wandering around the house with that expression I had learned to dread, that barely concealed look of disapproval. After the cake, when the kids were busy with a scavenger hunt I'd organized, Jennifer pulled me aside. "Maggie," she said, her voice low but sharp, "I'm disappointed. This party is so," she gestured around, "basic. Emma deserved something better, something special. The decorations don't even match properly. The cake is crooked. You didn't hire any professional entertainment. It's a shame you didn't put more effort into my daughter." I was stunned, hurt, embarrassed. I'd spent days preparing, had put love into every detail, and now I was being criticized as if I'd done nothing. Michael overheard the conversation and was visibly uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything in my defense. He simply put his hand on Jennifer's shoulder and led her into another room. 2 months later, Jennifer threw Emma a second birthday party. She rented a full party hall, hired professional entertainers, clowns, a huge bounce house, and elaborate decorations designed by an event company. There were over 50 children, practically Emma's entire school. The party cost $8,700, and when Jennifer asked me to contribute, saying she wanted to give Emma the celebration she deserved, unlike the sad attempt I had made, I paid. I paid and smiled in the photos and lied when people asked if I had helped organize that incredible party. The next few years were a slow progression of increasingly open disrespect. Jennifer began criticizing everything I did with the children. The way I styled Emma's hair was wrong. She needed elaborate French braids, not just a simple ponytail. The clothes I chose for the children weren't stylish enough. They needed to be from specific brands. The food I prepared wasn't organic enough, adventurous enough, or Instagrammable enough. When Lucas started talking, his first words to me were "Grandma," "Maggie," and he said it with such love that my heart melted. But Jennifer corrected him, telling him he should call me grandmother. Margaret, because it sounded more appropriate, more respectable. It was a small detail, but it hurt deeply, this attempt to create distance, even in the way my own grandson referred to me. Michael seemed unaware or chose not to notice Jennifer's increasingly poor treatment of me. He was so absorbed in working 12, 14-hour days to pay the endless bills that he was rarely around enough to see the real dynamics. And when she was home, Jennifer was careful to maintain a facade of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law getting along, at least when Michael was paying attention. The true beginning of the end began 3 months before that catastrophic Thanksgiving. Jennifer announced she wanted to throw an epic Christmas party, inviting all of Michael's extended family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues. She wanted professional decorations inside and out, lights synchronized with music, and a 12-foot Christmas tree. She wanted a fully catered buffet, an open bar, and expensive gifts for all the guests. The budget she presented was $15,900. $15,900 for a Christmas party. This time, I said no. Firmly, definitively, unambiguously no. I explained that I was at my financial limit, that I was struggling to pay my own bills, that the home equity loan was killing me, that I barely had enough money for food some weeks. I said I loved my family, but that I had reached my absolute limit, that I couldn't take it anymore. Jennifer became furious in a way she had never shown so openly before. Her face turned red, her eyes flashed, and she yelled at me for the first time. "You're selfish," she yelled. "After everything we've done for you, after letting you be a part of the children's lives, after being patient with your opinions and your critical nature, you can't do this one thing for us. If you truly loved your granddaughters, you would find a way." Michael was there, and finally, I saw real discomfort on his face. He tried to calm Jennifer down, saying they could have a simpler party, that they didn't need to spend so much. But Jennifer wouldn't listen. She said she was fed up with depending on me, fed up with having to ask, fed up with being made to feel like she owed her gratitude. She slammed the door, leaving Michael and me in a heavy silence. "Mom," he finally said, "I'm so sorry. She's been stressed lately. It's not about you. It was about me. It was all about me and the fact that I had finally dared to set a boundary." From that day on, Jennifer began systematically excluding me from the children's lives. She said she no longer needed me to babysit them so often, that she had decided to be more hands-on, to spend more quality time with Emma and Lucas. It sounded good in theory, but it quickly became clear that it was punishment. She didn't want to spend any more time with the children. She wanted to keep me away from them as punishment for saying no. When I called to check on Emma and Lucas, Jennifer wouldn't call back for days. When I asked to visit them, there was always an excuse. "They're busy, they're sick, we're busy, it's not a good time." Emma had just started first grade, and I used to pick her up from school twice a week, take her out for ice cream, and hear about her day. Jennifer removed me from the list of people authorized to pick up Emma without telling me. I found out when I showed up at school, and the secretary said, "Sorry, your name is no longer on the list. We can't release Emma to you." I stood there humiliated, having to call Jennifer, who finally answered and coldly confirmed that yes, she had removed me, that she had decided the kids needed more consistency and fewer different people picking them up. I tried to talk to Michael about what was happening, about how I was being left out, about how it hurt not seeing the kids, about how Emma had called me crying one night saying she missed me and didn't understand why Grandma wasn't coming to visit anymore. Michael said I was overreacting, that Jennifer was just trying to be more present as a mother, that it was a good thing that I should give her and the kids space to adjust to the new routine. He didn't see, or didn't want to see, that this was manipulation, that this was punishment for finally daring to say no. The weeks before Thanksgiving were the most painful. I barely saw my grandchildren. I saw photos of them constantly on Jennifer's Instagram. Knew they were fine, but I wasn't allowed to be a part of their lives. Jennifer posted about outings, fun activities, family movie nights, everything I used to be a part of and was now excluded from. Each post was a stab in the back, a reminder of everything I'd lost. I decided that on Thanksgiving, I would make a supreme effort. I would prepare the perfect dinner, invite the whole family, create an environment so loving and welcoming that tensions would melt away, that we could start anew. I spent 2 full days preparing everything. I cleaned my house until it gleamed, polishing every surface, vacuuming every corner. I cooked a perfect 20-pound turkey prepared homemade stuffing cranberry sauce from scratch creamed mashed potatoes. Green beans with toasted almonds, homemade rolls, pumpkin pie, pecan pie. I set the table with the fine china that had belonged to my grandmother, used the linen napkins that only came out on special occasions, placed fresh flowers from the market, and lit scented candles. The house was beautiful, welcoming, smelling wonderful, waiting to embrace my family. When the doorbell rang at 4 o'clock, I was nervous but hopeful. I opened the door and Emma and Lucas ran in, shouting, "Grandma, Maggie!" Hugging my legs, and for a moment, all was right in the world. Michael walked in behind them, carrying a bottle of wine, kissed me on the cheek, and told me the house was beautiful and that he'd missed my cooking. Jennifer was the last to enter, and the moment our eyes met, I knew it was going to be a difficult night. She greeted me coldly without the usual hug and walked straight into the living room without commenting on the house, the food, or anything. Dinner started surprisingly well. The kids were excited, Emma telling elaborate stories about school, Lucas showing me a drawing he'd made for me days before but only now managed to give me. Michael was more relaxed than I'd seen him in months, laughing at the kids. Stories praising the food and getting second helpings of everything. Even Jennifer seemed to be behaving herself, though she'd barely touched her plate, pushing everything around with her fork. It was while we were at dessert that everything fell apart. Emma, with that childlike innocence that doesn't understand adult politics, said Grandma, "Maggie, can you pick me up from school tomorrow? I want to show you the art project I made. It has you in it." I was about to respond, cheerfully about to say I'd love to, when Jennifer interrupted. "No, Emma, Grandma can't pick you up. She's no longer on the authorized person list." I looked at Jennifer in shock. "Why?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm for the children's sake. "Why can't I pick up my own granddaughter?" Jennifer put her fork down hard enough to make it clang against her plate. "Because I've decided it's best this way," she said, her voice icy. "The kids need more independence from you. You've been very," she paused, choosing the word carefully, "involved in their lives." Michael finally intervened. "Jennifer, let's not do this now," he said quietly, glancing nervously at the children, who were growing quiet, sensing the tension. "This can wait until later." But Jennifer was just getting started. "No, Michael," she said, turning to face him. "It can't wait. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of having to deal with your mother constantly meddling in our family, of having to be grateful for things she does just to maintain control over us." Michael looked stunned. "Mom's not trying to control anything," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "She's just trying to help. She loves the kids." Jennifer laughed a bitter laugh. "Help? She'd suffocated us financially, made us feel obligated to her for every penny she gave us." I froze. Every penny I'd given, they'd begged, pleaded, manipulated for every dollar. I tried to defend myself. "Jennifer, I never wanted you to feel obligated. I just wanted to help my family, to make sure the children had what they needed." "That's where you're wrong," Jennifer spat. "You wanted to control. You wanted to make us dependent on you, so we'd always have to be grateful, always have to include you, always have to put up with your opinions on how we raise our children." Michael looked between us, clearly uncomfortable, but still not defending me. "I made the mistake of mentioning the money," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Jennifer, over the last 6 years, I've invested over $100,000 in this family. I've taken care of your children essentially for free for years. I've never asked for gratitude. I just expected basic respect." And there it was, the number finally said out loud. $100,000. $100,000 that represented my entire retirement, my entire security, my entire lifetime of careful savings. Michael paled, clearly having no idea the total was so high. But Jennifer showed no remorse, only anger. "You offered it willingly," she practically screamed. "We never asked, you insisted. You wanted to pay for it all so you could feel important, so you could meddle. And now you're throwing it in our faces as if we owe you something." It was such a blatant rewriting of history that I was literally speechless. Michael was too. I could see in his face that he knew she was lying, that he remembered all the times. Jennifer had come crying to me for help, all the times they had asked me for money, loans, time. He started to speak. Jennifer, that's not true. We've asked for help many times. Mother was generous when we but. Jennifer cut him off. No, she said, her voice suddenly cold and resolute. No, Michael, I'm done. I'm done sharing you with her, having to compete for your attention, having to put up with her constantly in our lives. And then she said the words. She stood looking directly at Michael, completely ignoring. Emma and Lucas, who were now clearly frightened, Lucas beginning to cry softly. Choose, Jennifer said, her voice shaking but determined. Choose her or me. Choose your mother or your wife. Choose now in front of everyone. Choose and live with your decision. The silence that followed was absolute. Emma was frozen, her eyes darting from one person to the other. Lucas was crying openly now, reaching for me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Michael was pale, his mouth open clearly in shock. I wanted to scream that this was absurd, that no one should have to make such a choice, that family didn't work this way. But I was paralyzed, unable to do more than look at my son and pray. Jennifer continued crying now, but tears that seemed more of anger than sadness. I'm tired of being second priority. I'm tired of every decision we make having to go through Maggie's approval. I'm tired of living under her constant judgment. If you choose me, we'll have a life together, just us and our children. If you choose her, she gestured dismissively, then I'll take the kids and leave today, right now, and you can run to Mommy's arms, like you always do. Michael looked at me, and I saw so much on his face in that moment. Love, guilt, fear, panic, confusion. He opened his mouth, closed it, and opened it again. Mom, he began, and my heart sank, because the beginning of a sentence rarely ends well. Mom, me. He looked at Jennifer, then back at me. I can't lose my children. I can't. If she leaves and takes Emma and Lucas, I'll never forgive myself. I need to choose my family, my wife, my children. Each word was a knife. I tried to keep my face neutral for the children's sake, but I failed. Tears began to fall silently. Jennifer smiled a smile of pure victory. She grabbed her bag and called Emma and Lucas. Come on, kids. Time to go. Emma was crying now, saying, I don't want to go. I want to stay with Grandma, but Jennifer pulled her firmly away. Say goodbye to your grandma, she said, a tone of finality in her voice. Michael stood and looked at me once more. Mom, I'm sorry I can't lose my kids, was all he said before following Jennifer and the kids out of my house. The door closed. The house was silent except for the sound of my tears. The table was still set with food. No one had finished. The candles still burned. And I was completely alone on Thanksgiving, having just lost everything that mattered. I collapsed in my chair and cried like I hadn't cried in years, not since Robert's funeral. I cried for the betrayal, for the injustice, for the years of sacrifice that had ended like this. I spent the rest of that day and the entire next day in a fog of grief. I could barely process what had happened, replaying every moment in my head, wondering what I could have done differently. I tried calling Michael on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. He didn't answer. I sent texts, emails, all without a response. It was as if I had ceased to exist to him. 2 weeks passed like this, 2 weeks of deafening silence, of waking up every day, hoping that today would be the day he would call, that he would realize the absurdity of what had happened. It was a Tuesday, 2 weeks after that terrible Thanksgiving, that I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered hesitantly. Maggie said, a woman's voice I didn't immediately recognize. It's Lisa Peterson, Jennifer's friend. We need to talk. It's urgent. Lisa was someone I'd met a few times at parties at Michael and Jennifer's house, a woman who also had children and who had always been cordial to me. I agreed to meet her that afternoon at a downtown coffee shop. When I arrived, Lisa was already there, fiddling nervously with a cup of coffee, looking around as if expecting to be discovered. I sat down, and before I could ask what was going on, Lisa began speaking rapidly, the words coming out in a torrent. Maggie, I couldn't stay quiet any longer. My conscience wouldn't let me. What Jennifer did to you is horrible. And there are things you don't know, things you deserve to know. I waited, my heart pounding. Lisa pulled out her phone, opened the photo gallery, and showed me. They were photos of Jennifer with a man I didn't know. But they weren't innocent photos of friends. They were photos of them kissing, holding each other intimately, looking at each other in a way that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice coming out as a whisper. "His name is Derek," Lisa said. "Jennifer met him at the gym about a year ago. They've been having an affair. I've seen them together several times, always carefully hiding it, meeting in neighboring towns where no one knew them." But there was more. Lisa told me that Jennifer had been planning to divorce Michael for months. The plan was to first completely alienate me, to destroy my relationship with Michael, so that when she filed for divorce, Michael would have no one to turn to, no one to advise him. Jennifer wanted the house primary custody of the children and generous alimony. She had consulted a lawyer months ago, was building a case, documenting every penny. Michael spent creating a narrative in which she was the devoted wife and mother who sacrificed her career while her husband overworked, and her meddling mother-in-law caused problems in the marriage. My blood ran cold. Everything started to make sense. The gradual exclusion, the accusations at Thanksgiving, the ultimatum. It was all part of a bigger plan. "Lisa, why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Why risk your friendship with Jennifer?" Lisa looked at me with sad eyes. "Because I can't pretend everything's okay anymore. Because I have children, and if someone did this to my mother, I would expect someone to tell me. Because what Jennifer is doing is wrong, and Michael deserves to know the truth, and you don't deserve to suffer because of her manipulative plan." Lisa emailed me the photos along with screenshots of text messages between Jennifer and Derek that she'd managed to see once when Jennifer left her phone unlocked. The messages were explicit, not just about the affair, but about their plans. Jennifer wrote to Derek that she'd soon be free, that the money from the division of assets would be substantial, that they could finally start a life together. Derek responded by asking about me, and Jennifer had written, "The old witch is finally out of the way. I managed to make Michael choose between us, and naturally he chose his wife. Now I just need to make him choose me a few more times over her until the bond is completely broken, and then I can make my move." Reading it was simultaneously devastating and liberating. Devastating because it confirmed that the past few years had been an elaborate manipulation, that Jennifer had never loved me as a mother-in-law or a surrogate mother, that I had been used and discarded. Liberating because it meant I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the harsh treatment, that there was a concrete reason for everything. I knew I needed to tell Michael, but how he wasn't answering my calls, wasn't responding to messages. I decided I had no choice but to go to their house and confront the situation directly. It was a risk. Jennifer might kick me out, might cause a scene, but I had to try. It was a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, when I drove to the house I'd helped buy. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I parked in front, took a deep breath, and rang the doorbell. Jennifer opened the door, and when she saw me, her face quickly went through several expressions, from surprise to anger to something that looked like fear. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. She said she had information about Derek that she would certainly like to discuss before it became public. The change in her face was instantaneous. The color drained, her eyes widened. She quickly let me in, closing the door and glancing nervously out the window as if expecting paparazzi. Michael was in the living room, surprised to see me starting to get up. Before Jennifer could say anything, I pulled an envelope from my bag. "Michael, you need to see this," I said, my voice surprisingly firm. I handed him the envelope containing printouts of the photos and messages. I saw the exact moment he processed what he was seeing. His face went from confused to shocked to devastated in seconds. He looked at Jennifer. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice breaking. Jennifer tried to deny it, saying the photos were old, that they meant nothing, that I was desperate and making things up. But then Michael began reading the messages aloud, the recent dated messages, unquestionably clear about the affair and the divorce plans. The confrontation that followed was intense, painful to witness, even though it was about me. Michael yelled at Jennifer in a way I never thought he was capable of. How long? How many lies did you plan? All of this was Thanksgiving, orchestrated. Did you make me choose between you and my mother knowing? You were cheating on me, Jennifer tried. Various tactics from crying to anger to trying. To turn the tables by saying she'd gotten involved with Derek. Because Michael was always working, because he didn't pay attention to her. Because her mother-in-law was too present. But her arguments fell on deaf ears. Michael was seeing clearly for the first time in years. He remembered all the times I'd helped, all the money I'd spent, all the years of free childcare. He remembered how Jennifer always had a new need, a new expense, a reason I needed to help again. He saw the pattern of manipulation, and he couldn't unsee it anymore. Jennifer did what she does best, then she played the children card. She said that if Michael didn't forgive her, if he told the kids about the affair, if he filed for divorce, she would fight for full custody, make his life hell, and make sure he barely saw Emma and Lucas. Michael looked at her, and I saw something change in his face. Something definitive. He said in an eerily calm voice, "You can try, but with this evidence of adultery and your documented plans for financial manipulation, I doubt any judge would give you full custody." In the days that followed, Michael hired the best divorce lawyer he could afford and officially began the divorce process. Jennifer was shocked. She truly hadn't expected him to follow through. She tried everything from begging for forgiveness to threatening legal action to using the children as leverage. But Michael was resolute. His lawyer was excellent, and with the evidence of adultery and the messages revealing her plans, the case was tilted in Michael's favor. During the seventh trial, many other truths came to light. Michael's lawyer discovered that Jennifer had secret credit card debts totaling over $40,000 accumulated through designer clothes, beauty treatments, and expensive dinners, all to maintain her perfect Instagram image. Michael had no idea about these debts. We discovered that Jennifer had lied about many things over the years, including her mother's financial situation. Her mother had actually offered to help with the wedding, but Jennifer had declined because it was easier to manipulate me. The most painful part was discovering how Jennifer had systematically poisoned Emma and Lucas against me during those weeks of exclusion. She told the children that Grandma Maggie was sick and couldn't visit them, that Grandma had gotten mad at Mom and Dad and didn't want to see them anymore, that Grandma had gone away on a trip. The children were confused and hurt. Emma had cried into her pillow for several nights, and Lucas constantly asked when Grandma would return. When Michael discovered this through a devastating conversation with Emma, where she asked if Grandma no longer loved her, he became furious in a way that was frightening to watch, even if it was justified. The divorce proceedings were contentious, but in the end, justice prevailed. Michael was awarded primary custody of the children due to Jennifer's evidence of infidelity and documented manipulation. Jennifer was granted supervised visitation initially, then only every other weekend. The house remained with Michael since my loan had paid the down payment and he could prove it. Jennifer's secret debts were assigned to her to pay. As for the money I'd given over the years, Michael's lawyer included in the lawsuit a demand for partial repayment from me. He wouldn't get it all back, of course, but Jennifer was ordered to pay me $45,000 of her assets in the division. She had to sell a car, jewelry, designer handbags, everything to raise the money. It wasn't the $100,000 I'd spent, but it was enough to completely pay off my home equity loan and have a small cushion for the first time in years. The healing process took time. Michael and I had several long, painful conversations about everything that happened. He apologized repeatedly for not standing up for me, for allowing himself to be manipulated, for choosing Jennifer over me on that terrible Thanksgiving. He cried in my arms like a little boy, telling me how sorry he was, how blind he had been, how he should never have doubted me. I forgave him because he was my son, because familial love sometimes means forgiving the unforgivable, but I also made it clear that there were lessons we both needed to learn about boundaries, about communication, about not allowing others to manipulate our relationships. Emma and Lucas also needed time to understand and process everything. Michael was honest with them in an age-appropriate way about why Mom and Dad no longer lived together. about how sometimes adults make bad choices about how Grandma had never left, voluntarily, but had been pushed away. I slowly returned to their lives, first with short visits, then with full days together until finally trust and love were rebuilt. Emma once asked me why I had left, and explaining that I hadn't left, that I had been forced to stay away, and seeing the understanding and relief in her eyes was one of the most healing moments of the entire process. Jennifer still sees the kids on designated weekends, though she's inconsistent sometimes. Showing up, sometimes canceling at the last minute. The kids are learning to deal with her instability. I don't badmouth her in front of the kids, even after everything. I have a right to love their mother and form their own opinions as they grow. Today, 3 years after that catastrophic Thanksgiving, we are in a much better, though not perfect, place. Michael met Sarah, a kind teacher who works at Emma's school. She is everything Jennifer wasn't: genuine, kind, unpretentious, and with values similar to ours. She doesn't try to compete with me or replace me as a grandmother. She understands that there's room for everyone in a child's life. Emma is 11 now, an incredible, intelligent, empathetic girl who isn't afraid to stand up for what's right. Lucas is 8, an energetic, affectionate boy who still hugs me tightly when he sees me and says, "Grandma, Maggie," with so much love that my heart melts every time. I've returned to work full-time at the bookstore, not because I need it financially, but because I love the work and the people. With the loan paid off, I can finally save for retirement again. It won't be the luxurious retirement it could have been if I hadn't spent $100,000 on that family. But it will be comfortable, and most importantly, it will be mine, without debt weighing me down. I learned vital lessons through this experience. I learned that familial love shouldn't be confused with allowing abuse. I learned that helping the people we love doesn't mean sacrificing ourselves until there's nothing left. I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for healthy relationships. I learned that sometimes the people we love most can deeply disappoint us, but that doesn't mean the love was wrong. It just means we need to love more wisely, with more open eyes. I also learned about the signs of manipulation, how to recognize when someone is using guilt and obligation to control. Jennifer was a master at this, and it takes time to recognize patterns once you're in them. But now I know, and I can help others recognize when they're being manipulated by family members. What happened changed me some ways for the better, some for the worse. I'm more cautious now, slower to trust, more protective of my peace and my money. But I'm also stronger, more resilient, more aware of my own worth. I know now that I don't need to buy love or acceptance, that I don't need to sacrifice beyond reason to prove I care. I know I deserve respect, that I deserve to be treated with dignity, that I deserve to set boundaries without guilt. My relationship with Michael is different now, more honest, with more open communication. He's learned to how his passivity allowed Jennifer to hurt me, how he needs to be more active in defending the people he loves, and how to recognize and resist manipulation. We're not perfect. We still have difficult moments, but we're rebuilding on a more solid foundation of truth and mutual respect. Emma told me something a few weeks ago that made me cry. She said, "Grandma, I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to be strong like you. I want to love my family like you do, but I also want to know when to say no like you." Learned that 11-year-old had understood something profound, had seen both the journey and the lesson, and knowing that perhaps my experience can help her establish healthier boundaries in her own life makes it all worthwhile in some way. If you've made it this far in my story, if you've listened to every detail of this painful but ultimately redemptive journey, thank you. Thank you for witnessing, for understanding, for perhaps seeing yourself reflected in parts of this story. If you identified with what I went through, if you're going through something similar with a manipulative family member, if you're struggling with setting boundaries with loved ones, know that you're not alone. Like this video, if the story resonated with you, if you understand this specific pain of being used by family, in the comments, share your own experience if you feel comfortable, or simply leave a word of support for others who may be going through similar situations. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this, stories that remind us that we are not alone in our struggles, that there is always a path back to dignity, that we can survive family betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. Which part of my story touched you the most? What lesson do you take away from it? Tell me below. I read every comment and try to respond whenever I can. Because each of you matters, every story matters, and together we form a community of people who understand that family is sometimes complicated, but that there's always hope for better days. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Message with someone who may be being manipulated and doesn't. Realize it with someone who needs to know that it's okay to set boundaries and that true love doesn't require you to destroy yourself to prove your loyalty. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me until the end, and always remember you are stronger than you imagine, more valuable than anyone who tries to diminish you, makes you seem, and you deserve to be treated with the respect and love you give so freely to others. Your journey may be difficult right now, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is the possibility of a new beginning there. It's always a way to regain your dignity and your peace. Don't give up, don't accept less than you deserve, and never ever let anyone make you feel like setting healthy boundaries is something you should feel guilty about. You matter, your story matters, and I'm here sharing mine so you know that if I could survive and thrive after all of this, you can too. Until the next story, may you find the strength, peace, and courage to live the life you deserve.